All right, so we're starting looking at the architecture. Last big screen recording session, we got all this stuff working over here. So we have a configurator type thing going on. I've actually don't think I finished that. I've got some very cool code there to show off where it does some OS environmental insertions. However, we have got the Clacks up and running, we've got the web server thread, we've got the Pygame queue up and running. We've got this main loop going. We have got a render. We don't have the automatic switching of screens because I've only got like the logo screen going on. But if I throw a message at it, it will pop up with the message and then flip back. So I want to put a screen rotation in. However, we're going to build a new screen today. We're going to build the YouTube subscriber count screen. I'm going to show how to do that, and I'm going to show that you can use that like on another episode where you can use that as an OBS overlay, or you can use it in a big screen setup, a background setup like I am. Just a word, I am getting a new webcam hopefully at the end of this week. It's taken a while to arrive. I don't know why I didn't look for one which had like a faster delivery time, but it is what it is. So hopefully when the new webcam comes, you'll be able to actually see the detail on the screen behind me as well, which should be cool. What we're going to do is we're going to do a YouTube subscriber thing. We're going to just pull the raw data and then we're going to display it. Now, I didn't want to do that inside of the big screen framework thread itself. I actually wanted to do it in a separate cron tab, a cron job, which will run once every 6 hours, because I don't want to actually, it's not something which could change fast enough. Especially in the early days when we're not getting a lot of subscribers, and in the later days when you do have a lot of subscribers, you don't get the updates as fast anyway. So this will be fine for what we're trying to do. By the way, I'm at 10, which is a wonderful number. So YouTube subscriber count is going to be done here on the cron. It's going to write to a file. I've actually already got it running. It's been running now for about 2 weeks, so I have historic data in there as well. I'm only interested in the last line, so what we're going to do here is write the screen to do some cool stuff to look at this file, and we have a nice delinked kind of situation going on. So very quickly we're going to show you how we do cron jobs. Cron jobs, for those of you who don't know, is a very old bit of Linux technology which allows you to basically run a command at a predefined time, and cron is really powerful in that you can define when you're going to run. Moving very quickly over, this is my Pi. The way it works is basically you have a series of numbers here which represent minutes, hours, days, months and years. So you can basically, this one runs this first script every 5 minutes, so it's every minute divided by anyone, which divides by 5. This one runs exactly at 22 past the hour, but only when the hour divides by 6. So if you did asterisk, 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 it will run it every minute. It's not bang on accurate. I think these run a few seconds after the start of the minute, but it's accurate enough for what I want to do, and it's very, very powerful. Some people basically have like an entry point into a mega cron, which then decides what they want to do. So it used to be like a WordPress or a PHP BB type thing where you'd have a cron that hit a web page or a curl command. I like to have my crons run a shell script, and my shell script is where I pad out. So I could just call a Python here, but because I want to instantiate a virtual env, and I also want to run the correct environmental variables, I do that all at my shell script, which basically means that these run correctly. Correct way of editing a cron tab is to do cron tab -e, not to do any other things. You can tell it to use IDE editors. I'm running over SSH here, so I actually want to use Vi or Vim, depending on your preference. I like those as an editor. So these two are set up here. As you see here, I've already got my YouTube stat shell script already set up. I have my cron tabs in a folder. I know that they are, and I'm going to edit the YouTube stats shell script first of all. Now, this was done cheaply. Basically, I want to activate my VM, which now is activated for this thing. It activates it in bash, so I know my source will work. And then I'm going to actually make sure I'm in the right folder, and that's relevant because in my script, I don't have an exact path to my output, so I'm actually going to write outputs to an output. I'm actually going to write errors to one file and the actual data to another file, so I separate my data file from my runtime error file so I can diagnose what's going on. When you're running crons, if you don't capture output, it sends it to mail, and it sends it to your root user, which you may not have set up on a server. In olden days, you would always have mail set up and configured correctly. In modern days, you quite probably don't have that set up in the server. If it's a hosted solution and you're running cron, they possibly do have the cron output set up correctly, but I don't. So I prefer to deal with my logs correctly and then have a log aggregation system, which we'll talk about in a later episode. So this is basically the setup of my thing I'm going to run. Now, if I wanted to put environmental variables in here, which I'm going to do, I'm going to do this off camera, but basically I'm going to have secret equals, I'm going to have 2 credentials to talk to Google, because this is talking to the YouTube APIs owned by Google, so use the Google APIs for that. I'm going to have another one called key equals, in fact, I'm probably going to have it called YT underscore to make sure this doesn't collide with other environmental variables I want to use later. And then it's going to run Python. And you can basically daisy chain environmental variables on the front of a command like this. I could do exports above. I don't really want to do this. So those will import those environmental variables there. Then when I'm in the script, I'll pull them out. So if you just give me a second, I will now flip these environmental variables for actual commands. Okay, so here we are inside of the YouTube script, the Python script. I normally would write this in Visual Studio Code and then transfer it to the Pi, or I would actually mount a folder on the Pi and load that way. I'm not in this case just because I'm not. So when I'm writing cron scripts or scripts to design to cron, first of all I make sure my logging is set up. So the first thing I do is import logging, then config logging. That way, there's any problems on the imports, they'll get logged correctly. If I did this after the imports and there was some weird problem in the imports, that would be a problem. I'm going to grab that environmental variable. I changed it when I wasn't looking because I realized I'm actually using the API key version, not the secret client OAuth thing. Basically, when you're writing against YouTube, I've got my ID in here. As you can see, I've got my channel ID hard-coded in. When you're writing against large organizations like Google, they will generally have an SDK which has some kind of builder mechanism. Instead of you downloading the entire SDK, it kind of builds out the function that you need at the time. So I'm using here called the YouTube, this build function from the Google API client, which basically builds me an API object. It's a factory object which builds me the SDK object I'm actually going to use. I can then grab the channels functionality module and say I actually want to list the details of this channel ID, and that's the channel ID of invalid entry, which you can go and look up. You can go in there and right click it, and it's because I haven't got the custom URL, it's the ID at the top of the channel. The first 2 times I ran this, I actually did this in Jupyter, because that allows me to run the API once and look at the output and manipulate the output lots of times without running the API call. You don't necessarily want to use APIs for remote service a lot because you can get charged them. I don't think the charge for a YouTube one is very high, but even so, I want to be respectful of other people's services. So I want to call as least often as possible for my business functionality. And for me, once every 6 hours could be suitable. I'm basically going to append the time to the stats. So basically, I'll grab the stats out, these 3 values I want out, and I'm going to add the current time in the ISO format, knowing that I can recover ISO format later. And then I'm just going to slap it into a separate log file. I'm not using the same log file as my logging because I want my errors to go one place, I want my data to go other places. And basically, that's it. I'm just going to data and jump it. Now, I'm not dumping it pretty, so basically I get one line per line, which means this is a log file, not a JSON file, because it hasn't got the comma or array surrounding it. Now I put a new line on the end of it because I do want it to be the next line for the next one. Any errors, I log the errors and I write out finishing job, so I can actually begin to time how long this works. So if we have a quick look at my two outputs, YouTube log, YouTube data log, then I get a whole bunch of rows of this, and I'm only ever really interested in the last line, but it allows me to cap those up over time. As you can see here, I've got 4 videos, and I'm beginning to crank up the number of views I have on it. It is slowly going upwards, which is wonderful. You can kind of see that when I launch the video, there's a bit of a jump. I'm not advertising every single video I launch. By advertising, I mean I'm not putting them every single one onto Twitter. I'm only putting, I think at the moment, I've put 4 up on Twitter, which means you get this discrepancy of how many views you actually get, and that's true until I get large more subscribers. I don't really want to turn my Twitter feed into an advertising feed. I don't think that's really fair on people. Not everyone's interested in it. If the video's good, maybe. What really helps if you guys liking and subscribing. If you haven't already, by the way, that's the cue. But I've also got the timestamp here, and you see it's running every 12 hours. I ran one just now to check it all worked nicely, and I've got these data. So I've got this data going back. These files aren't big. I can keep that data forever. I don't need to worry about databases or anything like that. I don't need to worry about running it. It's just a flat file, which will just increase over time. Similarly, my output, my log file output, outputs YouTube .log is my log, and you can see here I've got the start and stop time, so I can begin to see how long this actually takes to run. It takes it half a second to run the script. Perfectly fine. Now I wouldn't want that half second to take part of a frame. If I'm trying to do 15 frames a second, pausing to do 1.5 second or a half second thing really gives a jarring effect. So now we have data. That's the outcome of that. It's basically we have data. Last thing is install the cron tab. Make sure you make your crons executable. So that means chmod plus x, that, so they're executable. Only the shell script has to be executable because that will do in Python, which is executed on the next one. To run the right version of Python, it all runs beautifully. It's been running now for a couple of weeks. No errors, no issues whatsoever. It's a good, simple script. Alright, so sorry about that. Basically, yeah, what happens now is it all works out exactly as before, apart from it only run the one screen. It's going to run the logo, give it a logo, don't care too much about that. So, what we're going to do is we're going to make a new mode. So I'm going to take the message node for the moment, and you'll see why in a moment. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to rename it to being YouTube A, YouTube A.py, YouTube A as my mode in here. Back on the debugger, I'm just going to say I want to run YouTube A, and this is from YouTube A. I want to import YouTube A. I haven't corrected this. I shouldn't have put these modules with the capital first letter, and it's annoying me. I am going to go through one day, so you may see a commit which does that. This should give me a pretty weird error message, no text given. Because remember, we haven't poked it via the web, and when we built this out, we said it was going to have this no text given as the default text in case there was no text given. All nice and simple. What we're going to do though, on enter screen here, and we're going to do this twice. We're going to do this on end screen, and we're also going to do it at a predefined time. I'm also going to get rid of this self-run until because I don't care about that. I'm going to get rid of all of next refresh. Okay, I'm actually going to bring that back actually. Next refresh. Next refresh is going to be. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to have a look every 60 seconds. But I'm not going to run the script again. I'm just going to have a look. Okay, and then that should cause it to update that. I've just noticed actually there may be a problem on my message thing, which actually means, oh no, it doesn't matter because it's only on enter screen. So I'm actually going to put that function inside the render text function up here as well. No, I'm not, because I apparently can't copy and paste. Yay! There we go. Nice and easy. Keep it simple. Let's go render the text where the text is. That's all that matters here. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to slap a new function here called def get text self. Alright, so we've got this YouTube A. What we're doing is we're going to use a bit of a hack to get the last line. To get the last line of the file in Python is a bit tricky. What you have to do is you have to basically go to the end of the file and then work your way backwards. And because there's a /r/n on the right at the end of the file, you have to ignore the first one as well. It's a bit of frustration because os.seek with a negative number from the end or a number from the end is a bit of a pain in the ass to work out. Because this is a home project, I can be hacky. This is hacky. This should work. So basically, tail the one line. I actually am going to go precise and do -n 1, so -1, and then what this should do is should work. I'm going to give this a quick whirl now, and ignore that. And here you can see there is actually something to come out. Now it's come out as a binary, not as a string, because this will give us a binary output. So I'm going to do .encode UTF-8, and that should give me a nice. In fact, I could probably just throw it to JSON. Ooh, you're right, because it's probably got decode. I can't remember if it's encode decode. I had a real problem about whether you're encoding decoding bytes, because obviously my brain obviously thinks backwards. It gets a nice string, which should be JSON. Now I'm just going to import JSON at the top here as well. So we have JSON, and then here we can just do JSON.loads. I don't even know if I had to decode at that point. JSON.loads that. Wrap around the whole thing. Now gives me a JSON object. Now I'm only interested in the subscriber count. There we go. So what I'm going to do is do self.render text subscriber count, and that's going to be square brackets around that, and it's going to be data subscriber count. So that's going to throw the subscriber count at the number. So what I should do now is get a very nice number of no text given, because I didn't take out the line here, which I was like, I've got to take that line out. I don't want to be the thing. So that should now do get text in the right place, and this should update once a minute. This should show a nice number 10 in the middle of the screen. Yay! We're making progress. Very happy. If you were going to do this as a YouTube overlay, you could put some nice text here, so you could actually do something like subscribers %s and do something called that. I want the raw number there. Now, and then you would mask it in your OBS like I showed you in previous videos. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch the masking OBS video. So this gets me a number. It'll update once every 6 hours. It'll always be roughly up to date. It'll be very cool. Now I don't actually want just a number in the middle of the screen, and if I did, I suddenly want it bigger than that. So I'm actually going to do some fun things with this. First of all, I'm going to bump this text right down to the bottom of the screen. So at the moment we worked out the T-top to being right in the middle of the screen. I actually don't want that. I want that to be just above the bottom. So I'm going to top is going to be the size minus the height of it minus another, I don't know, 40 pixels, just for look and feel. Let's have a quick look how that looks. It's going to be right in the middle of the bottom. Looks good. Like it. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to use this neon green effect as well, is I'm actually going to have a little icon for every single subscriber we have, and I'm going to use the logo that's down the bottom there, this little skull icon, which I've sort of adopted. Got my logo up here. I'm going to have a little skull for every single subscriber we have. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to grab that asset, I'm going to slap it into my assets folder, and we're going to see how we can then position that on the screen. I also want to do a little bit of maths to work out where those are going to be going, and then these are all going to be rendered here. This rendered text is going to be misnamed at the moment, but it's going to be up here. It's going to work out where they're going on the big screen. Again, I don't need to worry about refreshing this too often, but I am going to have to rebuild my refresh rate, because actually my refresh is I'm going to be refreshing this almost every frame. But I'm actually, because they're going to jostle up and down like little animated people. But I don't want to actually rerun the get text. So at the moment, it's saying to the get text here, this is actually going to rerun the render in every frame as well. But we'll see how well that does. We'll first of all get the people in the right place at the right time to begin with. Alright, so I'm already aware this videos go way over my target time, like 10 minutes by about 5 or 6 times. So what I want to do is I want to display a number of scores for the number of subscribers, but I don't know how many subscribers there are going to be, and I don't necessarily want to be haphazard on the screen. I could just randomly throw them onto the screen until I get to 10. I don't know why I didn't think of that to begin with, but I want them to be nice and orderly in their layout. I want that layout to scale. So I like to do my testy code in PyCharm, not PyCharm, Jupyter, which you can see here. So as you can see here, I'm going to write a quick function called calc. So at the moment, I'm going to call it with I'm going to put 10 width height in. Now the reason I want that is I want the ratio of the width to height to be maintained. So as I add more in, I want them to be positioned in the correct proportions. Notice I don't really care where I'm positioning the screen. I just want to know how many rows and how many tall I'm going to return here. So I'm going to start one by one. So rows equals 1, column equals 1. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to say while rows times columns is less than the number, we're going to increase one of these two. Okay, and I'm always going to increase one, but I want to increase the correct one to keep that ratio correct. So basically, this is going to return rows and columns, like that, as a tuple. So what we're going to do is this will print it out. I'm going to go pass. I'm going to do rows plus equals 1. So this will just make one very big row at the moment. So make one column with lots of rows. Give that around 10 rows. There you go, exactly as expected. So here we put some logic in. I could say always add to columns, always add to rows. I could say when I get to a certain number, increase. What I want to do is say if the ratio, target ratio, equals height over width, and I'm doing this on the fly, I've not tested this code, if the the rows over the width is bigger than the target ratio, then we're going to do to reduce that ratio means increasing the width. So this means columns, that should be columns there. Columns plus equals 1, else rows plus equals 1. Okay, no idea if this is going to work. None of this is going to give me what I want about, and it's target ration. That gives me three rows and 4 columns. I don't want to put rows and columns out. I want it the other way around. I want column across and then like that. That seems to give me 4 rows, 4 columns, 4 across, 3 down. Seems to work. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do for I in range 0 100 for the first 100 subscribers. Calculate for I and see what it gives us back. And actually, did that wrong. It should really print it off. So basically, that's giving us a 1 by 1, 1 by 1, 2 across, 1 down. Over here we've got 6 across, 3 down. These all look quite good numbers. 10 across, 6 down. Now you notice it stays on 10 by 6 for a while because obviously it's just put 1 in the last row, then 2, then 3, and 4, and 5. So that's all. This algorithm here seems to work nicely. Nice and simple, give us nice uniform layout on the screen. So I'm just going to grab this function now. This is now my thing. I'm going to shove this into here as a new calculation function at the bottom here. Give it that. Remember when you're pasting functions in, you have to tab them correctly and just put self there. So that becomes relevant. Hello and welcome to another episode. I don't know why I said that, because it's none of this, so we're just halfway through this one because we didn't finish. So Monday I was getting pretty tired, I was making a lot of stupid mistakes. It's now Wednesday evening, I've got half an hour before I have to go to a meeting. And we're going to crack on. Nothing's really changed from last time. I actually wrote a bit more code and now it's going wrong, so I've deleted it again. We're at the point where we have the calculation. The calculation is going to tell me how many there are across and how many are. I'm actually going to add 1 to both. And the reason I'm adding 1 to both is because if you think about it, I don't want the skulls on the outside to be on the edges. I want them to be in the middle. So I actually want to think of the number of gaps I want rather than the number of skulls I want. And of course I want 1 extra gap to pad them in. So that tells me how rows and columns are. What we're going to do now is going to put a couple of counters in. I want to count up how far I am through the row, how many rows down I am, and also how far through the total that I want to do as well. So total equals not under there yet. Column equals we're going to be on column 1, and rows equals we're going on the first row. Now these aren't going to be 0 indexed because I'm going to use them as a multiplier. I don't want to have to add 1 every time, so I am on the first column, the first row. The next thing we want to do here is we want to do while total is less than into the text. Probably should have done that earlier. I put it into and had it as a number. If this hadn't worked, it wouldn't have worked here. The entire thing would be a bit dodgy anyway. Into the text, what we're going to do is basically say total plus equals 1, and basically that's going to put a skull in every single time around this loop. We're going to basically say if the column is bigger than the columns, then we've reached the end. basically. And at that point, we're going to column equals 1 again, and rows plus equals 1. And we're also going to add 1 to column as we go through. So at this point, we're at column n, row n. So we want to convert those two small numbers into coordinates, and this is going to be quite easy to do. So first of all, I'm going to make my complete calculation. In fact, I've done that wrong. Let's just take that out there. Let's not add 1 there. What I'm going to actually do is x separation equals width divided by column plus 1. Put in brackets. That should give me an integer output. It rounds down nicely. Don't need to worry too much because the number of pixels. I don't need to worry about whether it's if it was 1.6, actually should go to 2 because the number of pixels we're talking about 1080p, so it's 1920 pixels. So 1 pixel out isn't going to be a big deal. Y separation equals the height. I'm going to put brackets in here because I've got a text at the bottom minus this divided by the rows plus 1. So that's up nicely. So basically what we're going to do here is we're going to blit self.skull because we've got that pre-rendered, and it's going to be column times x separation, and it's going to, the height is going to be rows row singular, because I'm going to reset that. Ooh, that could be bad. Row times y separation. I'm just going to check down here how we've done rows plus 1 there. That's bad. Ooh, that could be close. Possibly want to think whether that should be greater than or equal to, but we'll see what that looks like. Now that's going to look weird. They're all going to be, because this is actually the top left here, this actually is going to be a little bit more complicated. In fact, I can do that now. Minus x dot self dot skull dot get width divided by 2 and minus height divided by 2. And I could probably put that in a function if I wanted to. So basically what it's going to do, it's just going to subtract half the width, half the height, half the height. Get height. Again, I could do that in a function. I could pull that number out in advance, and that'd be a bit more better than doing the calculation every time. Just go see if this works first of all, because I've never run this before, and it crashes straight away. Width, x is width. So this actually is size self dot size 0, and this here is self dot size 1. Okay, and that blatantly hasn't worked at all. To me, this looks like the x separate. It looks like the y separation here is pretty good, so that's good news. Although maybe I've gone off the bottom, but the x separation is definitely way out. In fact, we're probably going to want to print out allocation at this point. Column times x separation. X separation is self.size divided by columns. That should be columns. There we go. Because that was dividing by 2. Because that was 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Explains why it's 1 in the middle. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then when we go up to 11, this number should go up. And what we can do very quickly to test that is, let's put it up to 11, just check it works nice. 11. We'll put some other numbers in as well. Here's my fake data log. So my subscriber now it's going to be 11. And run it again. There we go, 11. Let's do something fun. Let's put in 53. Made that number up. I haven't tested this at all before, so this is my test run. And there you go, 53 subscribers. So that's something to look forward to. That's our new target, 53 subscribers. So that's pretty cool. That works. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually go back to the RunMe. So that's definitely a save point. This here is our current screen system. So at the moment, this basically shows the logo. I haven't backported the electronic lights in yet. I will do that off screen. I'll do it off screen. So what's going to happen here though is I'm going to bring a date time. Date time.now. I'm also going to bring in, I don't have any time in here, so from date time import date time delta. Date time lowercase, don't know why. Module, I guess. Not actually an object, it's a module. Plus time delta seconds 30. So what this is going to do, this is basically going to make a 30-second loop. So it's going to show one for 30 seconds, and it's going. That's the next flip. I'm just going to copy this down here. So basically, on this one, if current screen equals, if it equals the message. Screens message like that. If it equals the message, don't worry about it because the message already has its thing there. Else, what we want to do here is say I'll be right back. I'm just going to think really hard, and we're still thinking. Okay, I thought what we're going to do, I'm back, what we're going to do is we're going to have this current pointer as naught, so it's going to be the logo. Here I also haven't got from modes.youtube a import YouTube a screens YouTube a equal. These are called YouTube A was because I was planning on actually doing one number and then the little skulls as a second one, but there may be a future YouTube which is like a graph or something cool, I don't know, or messages from YouTube, something like that. So YouTube baby, no, I don't want message. YouTube A, clacks, and then width and height. There we go. So this works quite nicely for me. What's going to happen here is that the current screen, if date time.now is greater than this next loop, next flip. If it's greater than the next flip, i.e. we've gone forward in time and it's now future, we then want to flip screen. And at this point we want to say that we want to just copy that again so it has another 30 seconds on the new screen. Okay, so what we're going to do is say current screen equals this thing, screen or screens, this thing, current pointer. Okay, now that would just make current pointer, and we want to do current pointer plus equals 1 to go to 1 if current pointer is greater or equal to the length of looping screens. Then we want to say current pointer equals 0, and that is spelled wrong. I got these things right. So basically that's going to be that. Now what we're actually going to do first of all here is we're going to call exit screen correctly here on the current screen, and then we'll call enter screen correctly here on the new screen, and then that will go into the. I don't know about handle event because I'm not doing the message, the resume message. So I'm getting loads of pings which I need to don't really worry about those. So it's Kaz messaging from inside. So we're going to give that a run. It's going to take 30 seconds to kick in. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to bring this down to 5 seconds just for testing. I will put it back up to 30. And then this isn't the debugger this time. This actually is the proper runme.py. So we're going to go see it works, and it errors straight away because I've mistyped screen here as screened. There we go, fix that. Run it through. Testing super important. There you go. Now, bit of a glitch. Obviously, it's flashing very, very rapidly here because to me that suggests it's flashing on every single frame. That suggests that I haven't set my date in the future here correctly. And in fact, I didn't say next flip is equal to now plus another 5 seconds. So we should get quite a nice smooth. We have one for 5-10 seconds. Now technically it's going to be 10 seconds on startup because you have the 5 seconds initial, then it's going to go to screen 0, which is 5 seconds, and it's going to stick there. So then you go to my 53 subscribers. I'm sure there's 53 subscribers there. I haven't counted. Back there for 5 seconds. So then we have this cool loop. Now remember, I can do animations on these things. And I can make these skulls. I'm going to make these skulls jiggle about a bit, so a bit fun. So yeah, that's it for this week. If you enjoy this, I'm going to get this onto the big screen now. I've got to just tidy up a couple of config values so it actually renders on the screen nicely. I've got to put the path to the file correctly. If you like this, please hit like, please hit subscribe. If you have any comments, let me know. Please hit me up in the comments. Hit me on Twitter. My Twitter is jmons. I'm hoping my new camera arrives soon, so the next video may even be the long-awaited heart video, which I'm very looking forward to. Yeah, tell your friends, share it, and I hope to see you all in a future episode.